Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next edition of Typhoon's Partner Spotlight webinar series. Today, we are talking about a very hot topic, and that is being able to have actionable insights around the data that financial institutions have and have access to. We're going to give it here in about 2 minutes for everyone to join in, get audio set up, and then we will be back to kick things off. So we'll be back here in about 2 minutes. All right, welcome back. And thank you again for joining us for another one of Typhoon's Partner Spotlight webinar series, webinars. Today, I am joined by some gentlemen who are quickly becoming good friends of mine because they are mad scientists behind something that I think is a really hot topic right now. And that is really having access to and then understanding what to do with the data that financial institutions have. And so I would like to welcome our friends Eliud and Pawan from ZettaLabs. Just as a quick reminder, all attendees are in listen-only mode and are on mute through GoToWebinar. So for any questions, please just type them into the question bubble, and we will read the questions aloud and answer them here at the end of the webinar. So Eliud, Pawan, take it away. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thank you very much, Josh. Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. My name is Eliud Polanco, and I represent a company called ZettaLabs. And ZettaLabs, we are a new Typhoon partner, and we are going to be focusing in on the advanced analytics space. So this is regarding the use of some of the new hot topics and some of the buzzwords that you may have heard of, things like machine learning, data science. So what we do is we work with companies to help introduce some of these services. But our goal is to ensure that you don't have to be kind of a mad scientist or a quant or a PhD in data to fully be able to take advantage of these capabilities. So our vision is that, and what we'll demonstrate today, are a series of new analytic services. They could be, think of them as analytic models or analytic reports that will be embedded into the Typhoon digital banking platform as a plugin service. Now, what we're going to cover today over the next 20 minutes or so is we're going to look at a few different types of analyses and a few different types of models, different degrees of data capabilities. And we're going to demonstrate how we can start to take advantage of the Typhoon digital banking platform and the log data that is being collected within Typhoon to start to take some of the data and make use of that data. And as Josh mentioned before, the game or the trick is to try to find actionable insights out of data so that we can actually make better decisions on how to make our members happy, how to deliver the right products and services to them, and truly get a new, unique understanding of who our customers are and how our customers compare to other peers within the membership group. So the way we're going to structure this information or this webinar today is we're going to look at 3 different examples. We're going to start with basic log analytics. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the new reports that we're partnering with Typhone to deliver, which will allow you to get some better intelligence and insight on how your members are using the Typhone platform today. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at how do we take some of that same data and start to do a little bit more sophisticated analysis. So we're going to look at things like behavioral segmentation, or what's typically called a peer group clustering of customers. And then we're going to look at how do we use peer group clusters to make product recommendations. And then the final thing that we'll quickly touch on today is we're going to look at how do we use the same log information, but instead of focusing on a marketing use case, to focus more on something that's on the top of minds for most CIOs that are running these institutions, which is, can we use this for security? Can we use it to help reduce identity theft or fraud? So let's start with the basics. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to demonstrate and share with you some of the new log analytics services that are going to be available in the Typhone platform very soon. Now, the idea or the goal here is to be able to say, with the data that Typhone is collecting for every single swipe, every single login, can we get a better understanding of which users are logging in, how often are they logging in, what services are they using, right? So can we get a better understanding of our users and what features our users are using most often when they log into the Typhone banking platform? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a live report, and we're going to just go into the Typhone, the Infinia admin console. And here what we're going to do is we're just going to look at a few sample reports. Okay. Now, if you're an existing Typhone customer and you've used some of the existing reports, originally we delivered a set of canned reports. And what we're looking to do here is we're looking to create live, dynamic, and interactive reports that you can choose to go through and navigate in real time to collect intelligence. So let's look at an example here, and we're going to look first at the user report. And so for the user report, what we're going to do is we're going to say we're taking a view of a full year's period. And over the course of a year, let's say we're looking at from February to December of last year, we had 297 unique users log in for this specific in this specific use case. And we can now start to get some interesting analyses. So let's say that I wanted to get a view of how many users logged in from which channel. So now we will get a distribution and a breakdown for online banking, mobile banking, how many users on a per daily basis actually logged in. Okay, and then you can see here a split that throughout the full period between February and December, you had just about the same number of users logged in through both channels. Now below this information, we can further decompose the information and break it down by browser type. So here we're looking at it and we can see how many people came in through operating system, or we can decompose it and break it down to which devices are people using to log in. And so the whole goal, we can see here that most of the folks are coming in through a browser, but there's quite a lot of other options in terms of how people are logging in. And this information, as far as looking at your users, we can decompose it down to, okay, how many new enrollments did we have? And let's take a look at the enrollments, and let's look at and scan the full year, and let's see, are there any trends? When did we get the most enrollments? So we can see that we had a spike here, that we had the most enrollments right around middle of May. Okay. Over time, as you start to build history, you'll be able to get some interesting analysis and some interesting results that will come from looking at this type of reporting. So we can actually start to look at the seasonality of some of the way that users are logging in and using the system. Very quickly, we'll log in and we'll take a look at the next report, which is a usage report. And in this usage report, what we're looking at here is we want to get a good understanding of which are the most popular features that our members use when they come in and log into the platform. So what we can do is we can select individual actions and look at how frequently these actions were undertaken, and we can compare actions against each other. And here we do have the full history of all of the different types of transactions and functions. So we can either kind of directly type, or we can just select from the most popular choices that are listed here. But the goal here is now you can get a window or view as to what functions are people undertaking on an almost daily basis. And then once again, you can now decompose that and break it down and say, okay, if I was to look at it by Typhon app version, we can now kind of create a view and say, most of the users that are logging in and performing these functions are doing it off of version 9.1.0.130. So the idea here is to give you an opportunity to navigate your data, identify or spot specific trends, and then when you're interested, you can either print out a set of reports or you can export the data locally so that you can continue to manipulate it in Excel or Tableau or any other kind of tools that you may have internally. So this is just an example. We're not going to go through all the reports, but the idea here is that we're going to empower and give you the ability to be able to now navigate and interact with your data to spot interesting trends and answer questions that were a little bit more difficult to get when we had a set of canned reports. Okay. In terms of what's next for this service, the first thing is that we'll be enabling the ability to customize these reports. So let's say that you're interested in different questions and a different breakdown of the information than the one that was that we just shared with you in this demo. So this is where you can partner with your account team and then they'll be able to create a custom report for you. In the future, later this year, we're going to be introducing a self-service create your own report wizard. So this will be for folks, if you understand the log data, we'll give you the tools to quickly drag and drop with very little programming. You can drag and drop and create your own dynamic views on the fly. Okay? And the goal is that these will be a set of services that can be an optional part of your subscription. So if you want to, you can continue to use the existing reports, or you can sign on and get some of these new customer self-service reports. The next thing that we're going to do is we're now going to say, great, now that we can navigate data, the question is there any information or are there any trends that the data can show me? And we want to move from what we call basic or descriptive analytics, things that are telling you what happened in the past. And we now want to start to move towards a little bit more predictive and prescriptive advanced analytics. And this is where we're looking to say, can we spot trends and can we make recommendations that will help me achieve business objectives? So the one that we're going to look at here is we're going to look at a set of advanced analytic use cases for marketing. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at, can I, based on just taking the same log information that we analyzed before, can I spot trends in how my users are behaving? Can I group users that are similar together? And can I use that to drive a business outcome? And the example that we're going to walk through is a new set of models that we're partnering with Typhon to deliver, which is a product recommendation model. And here's the way it's going to work. It's going to be based on 3 components. The first is going to be a behavioral segmentation of the customer base. What this means is we're going to have machines scan the log information and identify which customers or which members behave more similarly to others. And we're going to group them into peer group clusters. The next thing that we're going to do is once we have these peer group clusters identified, we're going to be able to now overlay products and services and different terms and conditions on top of the peer groups. And we're going to use those to see if we can spot any interesting trends or insights. And the net result of this is going to be a product recommendation report. So let's take a look at what this looks like. The first thing here is this is the output of a machine-driven scan of all of the millions of log data that was collected and stored within the Typhon servers. Okay. Now, the way to read this picture is dots that behave similar were grouped together, and you may have between 50 to 100 customers represented within a single dot. And when we asked the machine to kind of scan all the customers and group together the customers that behave most similarly, it generated a picture that looked like this. And it basically decomposed all of the customers and all the login activity. It decomposed it into 9 behavioral peer groups. And so what this means is that there's the majority of the customers fall into this peer group segment number 6. We have a few stranded outliers where you have, between 10 to 20 customers represented within each dot within various different customers to the side. And then we'll have some customers that fall into the next largest customer is this one, number 8, and then number 4. So the immediate question that we get is, great, we've now identified that there are specific patterns and then we can group together your members into behavioral patterns, but what does this mean? So what we need to do is we need to now have the machine generate an explanation for why they group together the various different customers into those peer segments. And it turns out that if you look at all the possible different ways that you can parse the data that was collected in the logs, the machine identified 6 specific features that can uniquely group together the entire population of the customer base. So just by looking at how many transactions were done on a daily basis, or in total across the entire time period that was scanned, or by looking at volumes of dollar flows, how many members are actually using their banking applications to do deposits and withdrawals, and what are the typical flows for deposits and withdrawals on a daily basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis? What's the average volume per transaction? What transactions were done in the evening? What the percentages of credit versus debit transactions, and what percentage of transactions were mobile versus web. And it turns out that based on how you perform against these 6 specific features, we can actually start grouping all the customers together. And what's pretty interesting about this analysis is that there are probably, if you look at the data, hundreds of thousands or millions of different combinations of things that you could potentially tease out of the data. But in this case, what the machine learning model is doing is it's scanning the log in full to tease out what are the things that are most interesting, and then producing the simple report that allows you to get an understanding of this is fundamentally how your member base is behaving. So that's interesting, but so what? Now here's where we get into the next interesting piece of information, which is how do we now take advantage of this insight and knowledge and use it to drive some kind of a business outcome? So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to focus in on one specific segment. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the unique customers or the members within this segment. And we're going to look at what products they're consuming. So this is a heat map. And what this heat map does is this just overlays which products have been subscribed to by each member. And right away, the kind of obvious observation is going to be that every single one of the members in this segment had a checking account. Only one had a line of credit or a mortgage. Okay? A few had credit cards. But the key obvious finding is that almost all of them had a savings account except for 2. And because these specific members behave very similarly, there is a high likelihood that if you were to offer a savings account to these 2 customers, there is some possibility for uptake. And so in this case, what this overlay does is, and this is a pretty simplistic model, the models can get, or the heat maps can get a little bit more tricky, but the idea here is to illustrate the concept that by overlaying the products and services against the behavioral segment, we can now identify opportunities where we could not only recommend certain products to different customers, but we can also predict what is the likelihood that they will actually accept the offer based on if you adjust different terms and conditions for that offer. So at the end, what will get produced is a product recommendation report. It's basically a simple report that will say, you should offer these customers a specific set of products with a specific set of tailored terms and conditions that are designed or driven to maximize the likelihood of conversion into a sale. Okay. So again, the goal here is to enable the machines to do the heavy lifting in terms of the work, to automatically scan the data, assess the information in real time, as well as assess the information every day as customers keep transacting, continuously group together the customers into their behavioral peer group segments, and then constantly look for different recommendations that we can make to drive business outcomes. In this case, increasing the number of products that are sold to a specific member. Now, the final example that we're going to walk through is we're going to take a look at how do we leverage that same data set But instead of focusing in on things like product recommendation, so instead of a marketing use case, how do we apply it for an information security use case? And in this case, the scenario that we want to look at is identity theft. Okay? So the way this would work is that the system will have automatically created a unique behavioral profile, or think about it like a fingerprint, a behavioral fingerprint for each individual member. And in the use case where we were doing this for marketing, we just put fingerprints together to see which fingerprints were the most similar. And based on that, we were able to group members into segments. But in this case, what we'd like to do is we'd like to say, let's take that same fingerprint, but let's apply it slightly differently. In this case, what we will do is we will take each transaction, and by transaction, this is anything from a login event, an authentication event, a funds transfer event, an account balance review. What if we can take each transaction and compare the transaction to the fingerprint? Could we identify whether the actions that are being taken are consistent with the user that is logged in? And the goal here is to be able to come back and say, at some point, if the system can detect that the behavior is drifting from the fingerprint, it is possible that the user that is transacting on the system is not the user that we thought was transacting on the system. And therefore, what we should do is we should trigger some kind of a control process to come back and say, hey, we should probably authenticate something with a little bit higher degree of security. And this is where we partner with the Typhone omnichannel security team, where there's a set of security products that are really focused on how do we handle what we call the step-up authentication. So here's how that works, right? So as part of the omnichannel security, Typhone delivers a set of different data controls that are allowed to, or that are designed to enable users to come in and authenticate themselves in different ways, each with a higher degree or a higher level of security. And so the goal behind this would be that this will be a service that can be set up as part of the Typhone platform, where based on each individual swipe, or based on a periodic review of a set of swipes over a pre-configured time period, you can basically score that transaction or score the activity in real time. And in milliseconds, it will return back a score that determines whether the transaction is consistent with the fingerprint or not. If the transaction is not consistent with the fingerprint, then this will activate the omnichannel security options, which could be multi-factor authentication, could be a biometric, could be a request for a different one-time password. So the idea behind this is to provide a set of controls to prevent identity theft transactions from taking place before they occur, not after they've occurred. And the goal is to embed this as part of a standard service into the Typhone digital banking platform. Okay. So we covered quite a bit of topics, but what I wanted to do is I just wanted to kind of reiterate that there is extreme value in the logs and the data that is now being collected as part of a digital banking platform. And this data can be used both for sales as well as for service. So from a sales perspective, we can use it to get a better understanding of what features customers like about the Typhone platform, about the online mobile banking platform. We can also use that to get a better understanding of how customers compare to each other, and therefore what products and services they're more likely to uptake. And we can also use the same information to create unique fingerprints for each customer and identify whether there is a possibility of identity theft as people engage with digital banking solutions on a remote basis. Okay. Now, these services that we've just demonstrated today, some of them are live and are available. Some will be coming very soon. And so what we'd like you to do is, if you have any interest on any of the services that we just shared today, please reach out to your Typhone either sales manager or account management team, and we'll be more than happy to provide a little bit more information and possibly even set up trials and kind of go through and discuss in a little bit more detail the process for how you can subscribe to the services. With that said, I'd love to kind of pause here, and Josh, if we have any questions from the group, we'll be more than happy to take them on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eliud. I know 30 minutes is a really short amount of time to pack in so many things. So thank you so much for running through that quickly. I want to kind of collate a couple of questions and just up level a little bit of what we kind of talked about over this last 30 minutes. So really there's, kind of three big buckets that these items fall into. The first is just being able to build out better reports. So, any types of data that the credit union is looking to get access to and understand, being able to build those out with, as you said, out having to be a data scientist, engineer, PhD, rocket scientist, lunar lander expert, and then being able to take action upon those in understanding the member experience side of things, being able to do more intelligent marketing, being able to do better cross-selling, and then finally adapting that to a fingerprint that allows us to understand the risk profiles of each member and provide, as you said, before it happens, fraud monitoring. Would you say that's a good summary of that, or anything to add to that?
No, that's perfect, Josh.
Awesome. So kind of those three buckets you had mentioned, we're already in process of getting those implemented. What does it look like for a current Typhone customer to get started with one of those? How much work and investment will it take from the credit union side?
Okay, so we'll start first with bucket one, because bucket one is the one that's currently at its closest stage of release. And so for bucket one, for the most part, it's as simple as logging and subscribing to a service. So in this case, there's no additional work. You'll be able to get the canned reports just as you subscribe. If you wanted to make changes to the canned reports, then it's just a function of sitting with the account management team, describing your requirements. And then the Typhone team is working on a service level agreement, which is basically describes the turnaround time for when they can kind of bake in and incorporate the your changes into the reports. But there's very little additional work. This is something that we're trying to make part and parcel of the Typhone platform, so that there's no incremental investment or effort or time on your side. When we get to some of the more advanced analytics, really the only effort, because a lot of this is built using the data that's already being collected within Typhone. So the real effort is just going to be to take a look at some of the sample results that we're getting either from a security side or from a cross-sell, upsell side. And I think the activity there is to do a little bit of tuning. And by tuning, what this means is that typically we need a subject matter expert to look at the recommendations that were generated and to just provide a simple I agree or I disagree, and to run through a few iterations. And that will make the machine smarter and teach the machine how to do a better job of identifying recommendations and opportunities, or identifying real or false positive indications of fraud. And so other than participating in that training process, which is really a domain or subject matter expert's time, there's should be no incremental investment in terms of IT services or cost to get the basic services up and running. Okay. Now, in bucket three, which deals with security, if you wanted to adopt some of the security services in terms of omnichannel security, that is going to be an extra additional step, because this one is the one that requires the most amount of integration. We'll need to figure out how do we distribute the hardware, the tokens, but that's that will be something that once that's available, those options will be made and described by the account management team.
Thanks, Elliot. I think you kind of answered this next question a little bit, but maybe just to reiterate on it. So I think this is also one of the things that I found really unique about what ZettaLabs is offering, and one of the special value props that you bring to the table, which is, this is simple enough for anybody to use. I am by absolutely no means even remotely close to educated, let alone an expert in this field, but I feel like I've already become able to navigate myself around some of the reporting modules and understanding how it works. So the question is just, what are you looking for out of technical resources at the credit union? And like I said, I think you kind of answered this, but maybe if you want to just elaborate on it a little bit more. It sounds like more of what we need is just subject matter experts. Hey, this is the business case we're looking to solve, or this is what we're looking to understand, and then the machine is able to actually provide that input to them.
That's correct. So I think the effort shifts from thinking about this as an IT process where you have people that are programming logic or writing code, and thinking about this more as an education or training process. So what we really need is we really need people who are subject matter experts. So let's say if we're doing something on the marketing side. So if you were able to take a look at some of these results and you can analyze it, how much of this do you agree with or disagree with, right? And to what extent can you help teach the machine how to do a better job in terms of clustering or in terms of spotting these opportunities? And in many cases, the feedback process is a simple upvote or downvote. And just by having a subject matter expert who understands the space really well and who can just provide that upvote or downvote, that's pretty much what it needs for the machines to start to figure out why it got certain things right or wrong. And you can incrementally see the improvement of the machine and making better recommendations as time goes on.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm sure there's going to be lots more questions to this, but we are out of time for today. So Eliud, Pawan, thank you so much for joining us today and presenting. Again, just to reiterate, if you have additional questions or would like to see what this takes to implement within your Typhone solution, please reach out to myself or Jason or our sales team or your account management team. We'd be happy to kind of walk you through that, answer any questions that you have. So thank you again, everyone. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.